this is not gonna be a bummer of an episode.
No, we did good on that front this time.
We booked this one like
Long time ago,
like
a
8
year?
or 9 months ago. And now we finally got to do it, and I've been stoked on it for the entirety of that time. This is with a guy named Mark
Greaney.
I always want to add another R. I don't know why.
The first time I read it, I thought it said greenery.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's Greaney.
He has written a couple book series. One is the Gray Man series.
He's written a lot of books.
He's coming out with his 15th Gray Man book.
Yeah.
Which, if you haven't read those books, it was turned into a movie by Netflix starring Ryan Gosling and Ana de Armas. And also Julia Butters, who's the girl in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, the little kid?
Equally acts with DiCaprio.
Right.
So, that's pretty impressive to hold your own with DiCaprio.
Yeah, and his Hollywood experience was better than a lot of authors, I think. He had a pretty good attitude about that.
Yeah, but it was interesting to hear about the transition from book to what actually ended up.
Like, this is your story, and now it's not.
Yeah, and now there's like
movie.
new people and shit. But yeah, I was looking forward to this one. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, because you've read all these books.
I have
not. But
yeah.
You've read all his books.
Yeah, although not his ghost-written Tom Clancy books.
Right.
But
He's
all
also
of his
written
books.
7 of those.
Yeah, that's where you got to start.
Okay.
But I find that the Gray Man series,
Yeah, why do you like it?
out of all the like spy thriller assassin kind of deals,
Yeah.
like your Brad Thors and Jack Carrs and that kind of stuff, Vince Flynn, to me the Gray Man has the best storytelling.
Okay. And character development and all that.
Yeah, that's part of the storytelling to me, is where like if you meet Court Gentry in the first book, and by book 14, the last one to come out, it's a different guy.
Yeah. Like life.
Yeah. And like all of the people in the books become different people because time has passed.
Yeah. That's
but
evidence of development.
Yeah, and all the books have, to me, very, like, they're similar, but they have different tones to them depending on the story being told.
Yeah.
Some of them you're like, this is fun, and other ones you're like, oh my god, this is dark, because they deal with different topics.
And that material gets pretty dark.
Yeah, there's a human trafficking one.
Well, yeah.
Which is real dark. But it was interesting to hear about his research and his just general approach to writing the character, writing the books, balancing it with expectations versus, how he actually wants the story to be told.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed this. I got everything I wanted to bring up came through.
I
found out that the love interest that gets introduced for Court Gentry will not be killed.
Well, he didn't promise. He took your consideration into
I think at
account.
one point he said she won't be killed for that reason, which is because
I
that
hope-
always happens in these.
I hope for all of our sakes that's true. Yeah.
But yeah, it's this is a good episode. I enjoyed it. Like I say that every time.
Well, this time, we didn't bring up any. I wanted to bring up a lot of stuff from like One Nation Under Blackmail book that I just read, which you should read. It's very disturbing.
Is that your recommendation?
Yeah, my recommendation is Whitney Webb's 2-part series, One Nation Under Blackmail.
My recommendation is the Gray Man series.
Well, yeah, yours is more fun. They both cover
and the Josh Duffy series.
They cover the same things. There's a lot of human trafficking in this book I read as well.
Okay.
It's pretty. But we didn't talk about that stuff. We just talked about fun things.
And he has another. There's a book a year that comes out, which is nuts.
It's insane.
This genre has an expectation of so many books.
Does it?
Yeah,
Is
like
that common
all
too?
of these guys have a book a year.
How do they do that?
I don't know. Well, a lot of them aren't particularly well crafted.
I like the way you handled that.
but Mark's books are well crafted, which is why
Right.
I, as an adult man, I enjoy spy stuff.
Sure.
I got these from my grandpa.
Yeah.
So, that's ingrained into our DNA, I think, at some level, is we want to see people do badass shit.
That's fun.
But I also, like I bring up, am a dick about the stuff I enjoy, and it has to have like
Oh yeah,
artistic merit to it and be done well. And I think this hits both of those.
that meets your standards.
It meets my standards.
Well, good.
So if you hear this, Mark, you met my standards.
Oh, he'll be so relieved.
I know he was before this going, oh my god, I hope I
He's
meet
like,
this
"Man,
guy's standards.
I hope I booked 15.
I've met his standards. Oh god. Okay, what else do we have going on? This is that corner.
It's still a winter wonderland.
It sucks.
It sucks.
It's supposed to warm up,
Is it
I
still
guess. I don't
snowing?
know. We're gonna be. We have new stuff coming out, which I keep teasing. But again, I don't know if I brought this up before. We have custom skateboard decks
Yeah,
that are coming in,
I think that's a good idea.
and those will be available on our Patreon. First, if they don't sell there, then they'll be available to the general public. But if you want one, you got to get on the Patreon. You should get on the Patreon in general because that's the place where we put all the shit we can't put on Instagram, and Instagram's getting worse. Yeah, dude, the censorship on there is going nuts. I got censored for talking about Manson in a comment, not a comment, in a message.
That's weird.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Like my buddy was asking me about something, and I was talking about Bobby Beausoleil and shit. And I sent it to him, and I was like, he's one of the Manson guys. And then later that day, they were like, something in your messages was wrong.
That's weird.
I was like, oh, good.
That's creepy. That's invasive.
It's not great.
It's not great.
And that started happening after they instituted AI to read all your messages.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know,
We have no privacy.
no, it's not great.
It's not great.
But if you want to see...
You should read that One Nation Under Blackmail book. You'll realize it's even worse than you think.
If you want to see tits and ass, you should join our Patreon.
That's more fun.
I also do post stuff about like Manson and shit on there. But other than that, you know, we got custom lighters that are gonna be out.
we are
Working
doing
on
that, yeah.
working on, you know, like ashtrays and shit that have cool pictures in them. If you know what I'm saying.
That's a good idea.
And then we have a new drop of hat, hoodie, and shirt that all match coming soon. So yes, I mean, stay tuned to that. We're also going to be developing certain parts for your bike.
Yeah, I like this idea a lot.
So you know that'll be coming out. Trying to angle at new old looking shit. It's hard to find stuff new that looks like it's from 1978. And if you find the stuff from 1978, oftentimes it's like $600.
Yeah.
You know, I saw an oil tank the other day. I have the exact oil tank. I bought it for $50, and it was $600.
Yeah, there's a big difference.
But it was black instead of chrome.
I would prefer it. Not $600 prefer it.
Well, it'd be $550.
Yeah.
But anyway, enjoy this episode. I did. And if you
yeah.
haven't listened to or read these books, I keep saying listen to because my grandpa bought all of them on Audible, and that's how I ingested them.
I listen to a lot on Audible because I work.
Yeah, it's like a podcast,
Yeah, it's nice.
except without people stuttering.
Or technical difficulties.
Yeah, or blank air.
Yeah.
You should check out both of his book series. Gray Man, you know, there's about to be 15 of those to go through, and then the
Got
Josh
plenty,
Duffy
yeah.
series, where there's 2 right now. They're different, but they're both enjoyable.
I'm going to start reading them as soon as I finish this biography on Alan Dulles.
That sounds fun.
None of this stuff is fun.
Yeah, we have a not fun episode coming out soon too. So
And
you
that's
know,
fun.
alternative Manson theories, so to speak. Stay tuned for that.
They're alternative. So, yeah.
Enjoy.
I'm your black cat baby. Your bad luck creeping around the bend.
Well, yeah, thank you again for doing this. I actually got into your book series because I'm on my grandpa's Audible.
Oh yeah.
And he, towards the end of his life, his eyes were going, so he only could like listen to stuff.
Yeah.
And he actually was the one that told me, he was like, you got to check this out. And I've been listening to Jack Carr and Brad Thor's stuff. And I listened to yours, and I was like, oh, this is very good.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
I'm glad he introduced you to me. That's terrific.
Yeah, it's a nice memory now.
Yeah.
But one of the things I like about your book series is that I learn a lot of stuff, right? Like about places that I'm not aware of, you know.
Right.
Uh, in the Duffy one, there's the Sinaloa cartel going up the mountain, um,
Yeah.
and then there's another cartel one in the Gray Man series. But it seems like
Mm.
you do a lot of research.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you actually get all the knowledge to put these characters in the places that they are?
Different ways in different books, but I'll tell you specifically about Armored, the Josh Duffy book. And I've used this many times in my career. There is this great benefit to the fact that there are idiots out there in the world that'll go places and do things that no sane person would do. And I hate to say idiot because I'm going to say the guy's name, but I mean there's travel writers. I mean, man, I've read travel blogs of like a college student who was like, "Hey, I put on some flip-flops and went into the Colombian drug cartel area and met these guys and partied all weekend." And you're like, you'll probably die doing that, but if you come back and write a blog about it, a writer like me can read that and like and expand on it. But there was actually a very good writer, and I don't mean to call him an idiot. I just think this, I would never do this. Guy named Richard Grant, who's a British guy who, just maybe he thought the world is just a better place than people make it out to be. And so he just decided, what's all this, nonsense about drug cartels taking over Western Mexico? I'm going to go up there and, have a good time. And I guess he was, a young writer, and to be honest, and wanted to get his career going, and was like, hey, this ought to work. And he went up to the Sierra Madre Occidentales, where there were a lot of, and this was like in the late 2000s, so it was like, you know, almost 20 years ago now, but it was really, really bad then. I mean, there hasn't been a good time there,
Right.
drug cartel wise, I guess probably since the 70s or 60s. But he went up there and he wrote this book called God's Middle Finger, which is what they call the devil's spine up there. And like, what do you think happened to this British guy who went up there with just a smile on his face and a pair of boots and a cowboy hat? Like, I mean, he almost got killed. He had these amazing, like, cool things happen to him, but I mean, all this like real danger. So I just read that book one day without even trying to write a novel. But I had an idea about writing about the civilian military contracting world because I had done a lot of firearms training around, with those types of guys. And so I kind of put two and two together, and I read that book, God's Middle Finger, and I was like, man, I would never go there. I've been to Mexico, and for Ballistic, that Third Gray Man novel,
Right.
my objective was to get close to where it was scary, but not to get where it was scary.
Mm.
But it was scarier than like where I went. So I didn't go into Sinaloa. I went into Nayarit, which is south of Sinaloa, which has
Mhm.
Puerto Vallarta in it, which sounds perfectly safe. But I was in the very northern part of that state and just south of Sinaloa. And when I was there, you felt like you were in the middle of a civil war because, not even like the drug cartels. I mean, the Mexican Marines had stops everywhere, and they wanted to know what this, solo guy in his, military age male with a backpack, walking around by himself, American
Right.
guy was doing, because it didn't make a lot of sense. It wasn't a touristy place I went. So that was my own, that was my own nonsense. But no, and I read that guy's book about what it was like up there. And, I'm like, I'm really glad that dude lived, so I can write a book about it. But a lot of my research comes from stuff like that because it's like, you can find somebody that's gone anywhere or done anything. And yeah, I was in Guatemala one time in an area where up in the northern part of Guatemala, and they're like, it's really dangerous and people get robbed there all the time. So I've like bought a machete. You can't have a gun there. So I'm like, I got a big machete. Do I know how to use a machete? I mean, from movies. Yeah. I've never really wielded one, but I was like walking through this jungle area, and I met a 24-year-old American female nurse who was kind of traveling by herself. And I'm going like, no matter how cool and badass I think I am, there's somebody who's either ignorant or more badass. And sometimes it's hard to tell the difference.
Right.
I mean, that that book, Armored, uh, First of all, Ballistic to me was one of the two Gray Man books that stand out when I'm like, oh, those were like rough,
Yeah,
like they were
yeah,
dark. That one,
yeah.
and I can't remember the name, but the human trafficking in the Balkans.
1 minute out. Yeah,
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 that
yeah.
was the darkest one.
But it really was. Yeah,
Uh,
when I started writing that, and I was like, what am I getting myself into? I just kind of went into it unaware of like, and I was like, how do you make this a tone that, like is entertainment, but at the same time, it's so god awful. Yeah.
I mean, I'm into some dark stuff generally. The last like 6 books I've read have all been about Manson or Son of Sam and all that kind of
Right.
stuff.
Yeah. It's fascinating. Yeah.
It
It
is, but
is.
even that book made me be like, "Oh, Jesus Christ!" Like every couple minutes.
Well, I did. So when I wrote Ballistic, I did a ton of research on the cartels, obviously. And I mean, there's nothing in there that's not a version of something that I read about. So there's a scene in Ballistic where a guy's face is sewn onto a soccer ball.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that really happened. That was El Chapo's guys. That was Cartel del Golfo, I think, or one of the groups. It was Sinaloa. And they sewed a guy's face. In my book, the soccer ball was then kicked over a hacienda wall to where the gray man was, just as a way to
Right.
scare him or to show that they got his friend. In
Yeah.
reality, the guy's face was sewn on a soccer ball, and that was put in a paper bag, and that was left on his mother's uh, front porch. So, you know, and it's funny. Don Winslow, who's a fantastic writer, he wrote the series, the Border series. He wrote a book called The Border and one called The Cartel and another one. And in his book, he has a guy getting his face sewn on a soccer ball, and it looks like I'm ripping off another author, but it's like we're both kind of ripping off real life. It's like there's no way a guy can write about the cartel who reads that bit of information and doesn't put it in a book, as
Yeah,
like, let me just show you the depravity that's going on. It's
I
crazy.
mean, there's a lot of people in my generation, not including me, because like I'm interested in generally old stuff, and if I look at crime scene photos, I can look at the Black Dahlia because it's black and white and not super high resolution.
Yeah, yeah.
But like new stuff, not a fucking chance. That stuff
Right.
horrifies me, right? But there's a lot of people in my generation that 12, 13 years old were watching cartel videos.
Jesus.
No,
Uh,
no.
and it's everything that they're doing is worse than basically anything anyone else has ever done.
In the past. Yeah. Yeah. It is. There's a level of cruelty, and it's a way to, I guess, you know, keep people in line, but I mean, there's, yeah, not to get too awful into it, but they would basically stop buses and say, okay, you guys going to join the cartel? And anybody who says no, oh, you guys fight to the death. We'll see who wins. And just make these kids, fight to the death, and just horrible stuff out there. But yeah, so I would rather research stuff that's like happier, but then, you're writing thrillers and you're trying to, I try to write about stuff that's really going on in the world. And so, sometimes when you dig into it, it's like the fun aspect of being a writer is like me doing research and going like a year from now, I get to tell everybody about that, like,
Yeah.
it's just sort of like, when you're reading something, you go like, oh my God, do people know about this? And
Oh,
I kind of have like a megaphone. I can shout it out, and a lot of times I'm sure people think I just make it up. And obviously do make stuff up, but like that stuff about the soccer ball, it's like, I hope I could not make that up.
I mean,
yeah.
someone did for real.
I think
Yeah.
we get that. We've both been studying researching some grisly things lately. How do you deal with that? I was thinking about this the other night. How do you deal with that while keeping yourself sane? Like, how do you study cartels for a year and
Ye-
not go
Dark.
just dark yourself?
I,
Like,
yeah, I guess, it does make, like you kind of can lose faith in humanity here and there, but then you
that's
just,
my thing. Yeah.
yeah, but then you
Oh,
just see
not a
the,
fascination. It's just this
right.
revulsion that,
Yeah, yeah, and I do think it's a tough thing, and probably something that you should have evaluate about yourself every now and then, and check in and go like, hey, am I okay? But I
yeah.
mean, you just see like the really goodness of people. Like I do a lot of research on things that are going on in Ukraine that are really awful, and then I also I donate to some charities where Americans and Brits and whatever go over there and just risk their lives, as first responders and you know, bomb disposal people and all that. And you go like, wow, there are amazing human beings. And,
Sure.
I guess as long as there's a lot more amazing human beings as there are, the monsters out in the world, maybe we'll continue on as a species. But, I think it's
Mm,
good to talk about the things that are out there,
absolutely.
because I do think people are just completely oblivious about
Of
a lot of
course.
stuff in the world. And you guys have probably read stuff and gone like, you're one out of 100,000 people that are aware that this happens, and maybe more of us should be aware to help shine a light on it.
Yeah.
You're in an interesting position because you can change minds with stories more than like logical arguments and
Right.
exposes.
Yeah. Yeah, and and my books are always entertainment, and I feel like the second that I feel like my book is there to change somebody's mind is the minute that they'll really start to suck. It's like I write books. I mean, for myself as the reader that I am, and really that I was long before I was a writer. And it's like if I think it's cool, it's like I think I'd like to read that in a book, then that's what I want to do. But at the same time, as you're doing research, you're going like, wow, it's amazing that everybody brags about all the sanctions we have against Russia, but this American company is,
Yeah,
is
a lot.
helping to build their the Shahed drones that are manufactured in Russia. I know it's an Iranian weapon, but like they're manufactured
Yeah,
in Russia. And talking about that kind of stuff is like you do kind of want to shine a light on it. And I'm sure people that have their head in the sand are like, he doesn't know what he's talking about, or he's whatever he is. But at the same time, you can't get that. You can't get through to everybody. You just, if you believe in something to be true, then it's okay to talk about it. And again, the books are here to be entertainment, but the world's a big crazy place, and we can't like turn our heads away from the complexities sometime.
yeah,
And the style of book that you're writing, which is like entertainment thriller, um, I think lends itself to kind of like people that aren't necessarily willing to go seek out information, still want
Yeah.
entertainment, and then they're not even realizing that it's being taken in sometimes.
yeah, yeah. It's
That's exactly what happened to me. So
very
I was 19 years old when Patriot Games, when Tom Clancy book came
right.
out. And I'd heard about Clancy because he'd written Red October, and I think Red Storm Rising came out, but I never read fiction. I like to read nonfiction, and I studied political science and international relations, and I've read everything about what was going on in Central America, because there was a really dark times with like death squads and stuff. This is be the 80s, mid 80s. And I guess Patriot Games came out in '87, and I was 19. And everybody been talking about Clancy, but I'd been reading about the Irish Republican Army, and I saw that his book was about the IRA, and I said, you know what, I'm going to give this book a chance, even though it's fiction and it's not real, it's just pretend. And I read
Right.
it. I read it, and I was like, this is incredible that I am so entertained and I'm learning so much and I'm getting information without having to read whatever U.S. News and World Report or The Economist or whatever you would read back then to get information. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know this was a thing. And so then I started reading the other Clancy books that were out there, and then Nelson DeMille and Frederick Forsyth, and then I got into other stuff, and it was literally that realization that like I can be so entertained and be so into a story, and also get that feel of places I've never been, and you know things I don't know about, because I did know a lot about the IRA from reading nonfiction, but like it really grounded me in a cool way to read about it in a novel.
Yeah, I mean, your last book for the Gray Man series, it took place in like Russian prisoner camps,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's not a thing I have any knowledge on. Uh, but
Not yet.
I do
Yeah.
now, but I spent a while in that world, and even the descriptions of like day-to-day life, it was bumming me out because I was imagining myself in there, and then I was
Right.
like, "This is never gonna come up. Like, it's not gonna. I don't have to
Yeah.
deal with this. Why am I
Yeah.
stressed out about this? I don't have to deal with Russian ones at least."
Yeah.
You're right. Right.
But you know, I mean that, and like my dad got into reading the first time because he read The French Connection, which is the same
Yeah.
thing where
Yeah.
that happened. You
Yeah.
know, that's based on real cops and a real heroin case.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times good entertainment at least leads people other places in their life, and they
Oh yeah.
kind of understand the world in a better way once they are done with that entertainment.
Right, right. And I, back when it was safe to do so, I went to Russia and spent a decent amount of, a few couple weeks there. And and I remember just being sort of like surprised that it wasn't like what I thought it was going to be. Like they still had hammer and sickles all over the place. They had like this sort of very militant, like just picture a militant version of the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. I've forgotten the name. I use it in the book, but it's like the National Youth Army or whatever. And they would stand on the street corners to get, charity, like get money or whatever, I guess, for whatever cause. And they just had these like really angry faces, and they give like these 14-year-olds giving you these like eat shit looks, and you're going like, what is this? And then I was there in 2013, and in 2014 they invaded Ukraine, and obviously in 2022 they did the big invasion. And I just remember going like, wow, this is interesting. And when I wanted to write that book that involved the Gulag system
Right.
that's still going on in Russia, it is, again, you're doing the research and you're going like, this is just, do people know about this? This is really fascinating, and it's so bleak and it's so depressing. And I'm like, okay, I got to find a happy ending in here, but this is going to be a challenge, but it was interesting to do.
Well, you know, when I was 14 or 15, I went to Kazakhstan.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and it was a very odd situation. My mom ran a film festival, and one of the films in it was a Kazakh film, and it was financed by an oil like billionaire who was best friends with their president dictator.
Yeah.
So we got taken to Kazakhstan on that guy's money, which was
Yeah.
really odd, right? And
Mm.
where the cities itself seem like during the day it's like Soviet Russia, and at night it's like Dubai,
Ah,
which is very odd. But the mob is everywhere. The remnants of the Soviet Union is everywhere. And like we were in a restaurant at 12 o'clock, nice restaurant, totally empty. Like 2 years ago, I was like, the guy bought it out. He bought the restaurant out, you
Ah,
know? But that was my first like awakening to being like, the world is not like America.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And what you experienced in Kazakhstan in whatever year that was probably like Moscow in the 90s
Right.
or whatever, like it's like the mob, the oligarchs and the Siloviki, which is the sort of the intelligence guys that are connected with the mob that actually run the countries in Russia or whatever. It's like it is, it's whatever you call it. It's a criminal state of
Well, when
being
we
over
got
there.
there, we landed at like 11 o'clock at night, and the customs people weren't letting us in. And my mom made a phone call, and then the customs people got a phone call, and then it was all fine.
right.
Yeah, sure.
You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, and I was like, that's not how that flies in the
Yeah.
Western world.
Mm.
You know, I don't know. Maybe we
Hadn't
had enough
discovered
money
yet.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
But when it with your books, right? Like to me, there's a lot of types of spy assassin thriller out there, and most of them don't have like I don't want to talk shit about anyone, but like character development and
Mm,
general like writing tactics in them.
mm.
Uh, and something that I appreciate about your books is that Court Gentry or Zach Hightower or Zakharova, they're vastly different from the first time you met them. You know,
Right. Yeah, yeah.
you're actually engaged in the individual people's plot lines and growth. Is that something that you did actively? Where'd you learn to write?
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, so where I learned to write, honestly, was by reading novels in this genre. Like I never took writing classes or anything like that. I, I guess you have to have some aptitude for it, but at the same time, um, I kind of just read, like when I think of my 20s, that whole decade, always had like six books going at the same
Right.
time. And I really didn't really focus on writing till my mid 30s, and to where I wanted to get published. But I dreamt of it before that, but I just read and read and read. And so I'm sure I made all the mistakes that anybody else made as I was writing. It just took me, I just got that out of my system and then wrote another book and wrote another book. And so the Gray Man was my fourth finished manuscript. It was the first to
Right.
get published. So I think I'd ironed out a lot of kinks by then. But the reason I have character development in my books, I think, is more than anything else, is like I'm just obsessed with not writing the same book twice and not having it feel the same way. And from the first book, Court Gentry's had a lot of like vulnerabilities, and I never wanted to make him like a superhero. I mean, he does superhero shit, like
But
obviously.
sometimes, like,
Yeah,
these people get out of situations where you're like, no,
yeah,
in a lot of these books.
exactly. There can be sort of a two-dimensional, like your hero is this square-jawed tough guy, that's just going to beat his way out of things. And those can actually be really good stories. But I mean, for me to be a writer of 15 books where the hero is, just smashes his way out of every problem the same
Right.
way, it's just, I don't think I could keep that going. It's like, I like that there's I like that you can pick up every Gray Man book and read it on its own. You don't have to read them in order. But if you do read them in order, you do, like you said, you see the characters change and develop. And in the first couple of Gray Man books, I kind of pictured him as almost being a little bit on the spectrum, as
Oh,
far as
yeah.
like,
Out of the gate, I was like, this guy's autistic.
yeah, exactly, exactly. But then the problem is you're writing 150,000 word books and a new one comes out every year. He's kind of got to be able to interact with people and to make that cool. And so I've almost like cleaned up some of that and made him a little more socially normal because of Zoya and other things. I've tried to make things in his life that have happened have that effect on him,
Okay.
and to where he's had some progress. Um, but I just don't ever want to do the same book twice. And I just feel like you just kind of change your characters and develop your characters. I mean, even his relationship with Zach Hightower has changed throughout the series. Like
I love that. Where
yeah,
they go,
people forget they were trying to kill each other in the first book. And
they change a couple times through
yeah,
the.
yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
Also took a very big swing, I think,
Mm,
about halfway through the series, where you did a flashback book from Court's point of view,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is kind of a wild choice to take in
Yeah.
halfway through your established, outline of how the books are going to be. They're all
Right.
third person. We follow this guy, but we follow other people, and then suddenly you're like, no, you're in this dude's head.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was 1 minute out. And that was it so first off, it's my only book that hit number one on the New York Times list, but that's not why. But I mean,
Maybe
I
again,
use it as an excuse for the people that didn't like it. Because I mean, people really liked the book, but more people didn't like that book than other books because of that thing. And they're going like, and they'll go like, I hate first person books, and I'm like, you hate Moby Dick, you hate Catcher in the Rye. It's like, sorry. I mean, I'm not comparing myself to those people, but when you just make that blanket
That's a
statement,
bit
it's like,
limiting.
yeah, that's a very limiting statement just to make. Now, you could say you don't like a guy changing from third to first, and I get it. It's like I liked it. It made sense for me, and I thought it made sense for that book because I knew he was going to be by himself for large swaths of that book.
right,
And I think Court is kind of at its best, and my writing is feels freshest when there's banter and there's dialogue. And if the whole thing was just in his head in third person, where he's going like, the only way I can get from here to there is to, swing on this vine or whatever. It's like that's less interesting than him telling you going like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to swing on that vine. It's like,
right.
I know what you're thinking. That ain't gonna work or whatever. And so I just tried it for a few chapters, and I like doing it. I like the feel of it, and I don't know if I'll do it again, but I was okay that I did it. Lee Child, who writes the Jack Reacher series, he did it, and like half a dozen books into his series, he did one in first person, and he did another one in first person down the road. And so everybody goes like, you can't just do first person. And I want to go like, yes, I can, because he did it. But I mean, it's everybody gets to like and not like what they want. So it's like I respect people that disagree with that decision, but it felt right to me at the time.
Also, if you're creating something, this is my point of view on basically all forms of art. You can do whatever you want. It's your thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Art.
And that's the tough thing because like a lot of people will go like, well, Court wouldn't do this or Court wouldn't do that. And I would kind of go like, yeah, he
Well,
just did. And it's just like it's just like as a real person, it's like not everybody does exactly the same thing, or not everything follows from A to B to C. And it's like it made sense in that moment for that character. But when people tell me, the guy that writes it, that the
Right.
yeah,
character wouldn't do that, I'm kind of going like, I mean, I guess I get to be the arbiter of what he
right.
does because I'm
Quite
the guy.
a mistake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's like I didn't think that I needed to consult with you. But again, it's subjective, and so like I say all that, but then I'll read somebody else's stuff and go like, oh, I like that writer, but that doesn't make sense for that character. Like so
Right.
we all subjectively, I'll read something and I'll be sure that that person is wrong, and of course they're not wrong. It's just their interpretation of it. So
Well, I mean, art is a complicated thing because it's
for
so subjective.
sure. For,
And you had the first Gray Man book turned into an incredibly expensive $200 million movie.
yeah.
Uh, what is that process like? I mean, I know originally it was going to be Brad Pitt, and like I
Hmm.
love Ryan Gosling, but boy, do I love Brad Pitt.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but also at the same time, like, do I buy Brad Pitt as an autistic hitman? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah,
Brad.
yeah,
What was the experience like starting from 2010, 11 through like the hell of it being sat on a shelf for so long until finally
yeah.
come out? How involved were you in
So I was really not that involved. So initially, right when uh right when I got the book deal, they and my first book, The Gray Man, was a paperback novel. It was not a big advance. It was not like one of these things that you hear of that just like is auctioned off and all the
it?
publishers want it. I had 9 publishers turn it down before a publisher said that they would publish it. And so it didn't come out with a bang, but initially, like literally, the minute that it's sort of announced, they do like a one line thing in Variety, or no, in a trade magazine called Publishers Weekly, just for people in the publishing industry. And it was literally like uh, a thriller by debut author Mark Greaney was sold to Berkeley, about a hitman who has to run a gauntlet of killers to rescue two uh, granddaughters of his boss or something like that. And that's literally all that was the line. And so a guy in Hollywood, an agent at Creative Artists CAA in Hollywood, read that and then called up my agent and said, "Hey, can I get a copy of that manuscript?" This is almost 2 years before the book came out on shelves.
Okay.
And so, I mean, that was literally how it started. And so my agent sent him like the what I had at that moment, which was, a draft that hadn't been edited by an editor or anything. We just literally had the book deal. And he said, "Hey, I like this. I want to represent it." So he started shopping it around. But even my agent kind of chuckled when he said, "Yeah, there's a guy in Hollywood shopping this around." It's like their little, small little paperback book that's coming out. And then he was like, "Hey, I think we've got interest at this studio and this studio." And we actually got an offer, 6 or 9 months before the book came out. And it wasn't for a lot of money, but I was like, the best thing in the world when my dumb little paperback comes out and I go out and talk about it on my local radio station. There's nothing greater for me to go like, yeah, Hollywood's picked it up. So it's
Yeah.
like I would have given it away to be able to like say
Sure.
that, not for a second thinking there would ever be a movie. But my agents were like, "No, we're going to turn this one down because we don't actually think they're going to make it. They're not a big enough studio." And I'm going like, "Oh God." And so finally, right before the book came out, it optioned with New Regency, which was a big deal. And I got money for it, obviously. And I was able to kind of like say that. But then I didn't think anything would happen. And then they got a screenwriter and he wrote a screenplay, and the screenplay was on this thing called the list
Right.
of that year, which is the best unproduced screenplays for the year. And suddenly everybody knew about it, and Brad Pitt was interested in it and all this, and it went from 0 to like 100 out of the blue, and it got really close to being shot in 2012 with Brad Pitt. and James Gray to direct it. And then it floundered at New Regency. And then the rights came back to me, and then everybody wanted to do it. And like, I'm on the phone with like Channing Tatum's people and Lorenzo de Bonaventura, who directed like or produced like Transformers and stuff,
Right.
and this guy that did Edge of Tomorrow, and like all these like big deals. And then I was on the phone with Sony and the Russo brothers, and the Russo brothers loved it and they wanted to do it. And so that's who I went with. And then for a couple of years, that looked like it was, in good shape. And the Russo brothers wrote a screenplay, which I really liked. And then they signed on to do some more Marvel films, and then they just kind of had to wait. And then then Sony decided they wanted oh my God, the beautiful South African lady whose name I just forgot, famous actress. She's in
Charlize Theron.
Mad Max.
Yeah, Charlize Theron.
Thank you. It's
Yeah.
the first time I've forgotten her name. Charlize Theron wanted to be the Gray Man. So they rewrote the whole script with her as the lead. And I remember calling my book editor and I was like, can you imagine? I'm like, what if I told you one of the, most famous, movie stars in the world is going to play Court Gentry, and we're not going to sell books from it. Because I knew that you couldn't put her face on the cover of the Gray Man novel, and
Right.
like legitimately. And then that fell through, and then the pandemic came, and then Netflix got it from Sony, and the Russo brothers were like, "Hey, we want to do it," and so it all came back together. But I mean, other than me going out to LA for 2 days and spending it with the Russo brothers early on in the process, I had no direct involvement, and really, I wasn't writing the script. I was just basically talking about where the series went on from the first book and where I saw it going in the future. And so I wasn't on set when they were filming. It was during the pandemic, so that was kind of hard to do. And so I really had nothing to do with it. And I knew they had sent me the shooting script right when they started shooting, and I knew, that it was going to be very different from the first book. So I kind of had my head was around that. When I saw it, I also knew that they were spending $200 million on it, and Netflix wanted everybody in the world to watch it. So it wasn't going to be this really gritty, heavy R-rated type of a story. So I knew it was going to be desensitized in some way. I still liked it, but I mean, it wasn't, obviously it wasn't my vision for the story, because the book is very different.
Is that hard to give up
Yeah.
the control of the story that you created and the characters you created, and then also see some of the characters drop off and some characters be added into it?
Honestly, the adding of the characters into it, like it's funny. Like when I saw the movie, I was like, oh, that's cool. That was a cool line that Court said there. And I thought Gosling did good, really good. I'm like, that was cool how they did that. That was cool how they did that. But then I'd go like, the Ana de Armas character kind of comes in, and she doesn't exist in the book. And it's like, she kind of comes in and saves things like a bunch of times and, like multiple times. And then the girl in the book, and I met the actress, she was awesome. She's really good in the movie, but like in the book, that little girl is involved in her own rescue. Like she has some agency, like she's clever. And in the movie, she's just kind of like a football that's, like rescue, picked up by the hero and saved. And I kind of liked in the book that where she had something to do with her own rescue. She was very clever and pulled some stuff off. And so there were things like that were hard to watch, because I'm going like, that's kind of a missed opportunity. And I don't understand why they did that. Really, the stuff that really bugs you is when they call a CIA officer an agent, and these things that would like nobody would do, and then don't make any sense, or people firing with their, the gun at their shoulder instead of, or under the crook of their arm instead of bringing it up to eye level to shoot. Those sort of things, you go like, oh my God, as an author, it would tear me up if I had, every CIA officer calling it each other agents, and things like that. But yeah, it's tough, but then you're just really happy that, you're going to get a lot more eyeballs on your book. I mean, it was great for my career, and
Sure.
and there was a lot I liked about it, and people were cool in the process. It's like it could have been a lot more close to the book, but I'm sure every author in the history of time has said that, so I'm no different.
Well, I mean, I feel like first I want to take a note that the actress that plays like the girl in the Gray Man movie,
Mhm.
she's in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
She acts on par with DiCaprio. So they should have just let her run fucking free in that movie.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good.
Yeah.
Uh, but I feel like your books were they to get the 90s treatment of these type of books, like a No Way Out, the Cost
Hmm.
Hackman movie.
Yeah.
Uh, that kind of treatment, I think, would have lended itself better to the original story. They wouldn't have had to like pull shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would like them to. I don't think they're going to do a second movie with Gosling and the Russo brothers just because of what those guys are doing now. I mean, the film was very successful, but as successful as the film was, the directors and the actor are very successful and are doing their own thing. But I think there is a chance, I mean, more than a chance, that Netflix will reboot it as a series, and I really hope that happens to kind of give a longer version and kind of get a little bit deeper into the characters and stuff like that. And that would be my dream, for that to come together like that. And my fingers are crossed that that happens sometime pretty soon.
I mean, I feel like the limited series has become the place for heavier
Mm.
stuff.
Yeah.
Oftentimes now, with
Sure.
True Detective, no one's making a movie like True Detective now, but you can get away
Right.
with it in an 8-part limited series for some reason.
Yeah, you can do so much more. And then you're like, obviously, as an author that writes a 500-page book, you go, okay, it's a 90-page screenplay, or it's 8 90-page screenplays. And, it's like, you would love to be able to go into, to have them go into some of the other characters. And, they're developing, not, it looks pretty stalled right now, but for a while they were developing Armored as a
Okay.
series. And I mean, it's still out there. It could still happen, but at one point they were, they had a screenwriter, or whatever they call a writer for TV, teleplay writer or something. Um, and I talked to him, and like his vision for it, I was going like, oh my gosh, that just encompasses so much of the story that you couldn't do in a 2-hour film. And yeah, I think that's got to be any writer's dream. But I mean, you're giving up creativity. I mean, unless you're Stephen King or somebody like that, you're giving up, some creativity, and to others. And everybody's
Right.
got their own version. And it's like I said from the beginning, it's like I the screenwriters and the actors and stuff, it's not their job to render my sheet of paper with words on it into celluloid, exactly. So everybody is an artist, and everybody wants to put their vision on it. And really, it starts out with the writer's perfect thought of how he wants the story to be, and it's only going to get watered, that's only going to get changed. And
Also, that
there's a few movies that to me are as good or almost as good as the book. And Hunt for Red October, if you've seen that movie, it's like that is
Yeah.
almost, yeah, I'm sure, yeah, almost shot for shot what's in the book. And Silence of the Lambs is another one that's like it. It's like just great book, great movie. It's like no notes. It's just like really
Right.
cool.
I feel like that happens the most when people take, because like the first Gray Man book, if you were to like, if I was a guy in Hollywood pitching ideas, I would have read that line too and been like, great, a bunch of hitman teams and a
Yeah,
chase across the continent.
yeah,
Uh, that's all. Right after the Bourne movies got huge, this is what we
yeah.
need.
And
Yeah,
the Taken series had just
yeah,
started. I've always thought that kind of helped get the Gray Man, kicked off, because Taken 1 came out
right.
like earlier that year. And I think people were going like, hey, that doesn't seem too expensive. I mean, ultimately it was with the Gray Man, but it's like you got a guy with a gun going around kicking people's butts. It's like, it's not like another, Marvel film. It's not taking place in space or anything super
Yeah, we
expensive.
don't have to CGI everything.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
It exist. It's modern day.
Right.
But I mean, if you keep the initial kernel of the idea that makes it a good story, you can change little things here and there, right? Like Friedkin adapted The French Connection, The Exorcist, and they're not the exact same as the books, but
Hmm.
the baseline of them has not changed in any capacity, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and like that's what made those stories good. But if you end up like in the Gray Man movie, I think an hour into it, I hadn't met the Hitman teams yet. Like we
Yeah.
should be spending all of the time on this. This is the
Right.
story. you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so I feel like, or even like The Shining, the book and the movie are different, but the baseline of it's the same.
Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly.
but it's hard to change mediums effectively, and I think especially now in the general cinematic landscape, like you said, people don't want it to be rough. They want it to be
Right.
the widest audience possible.
Sure. Yeah. And you from an economic stance, you see that. Then you've got films like John Wick where they're like, we're going for the rough stuff and you know, we don't care, like the more blood and guts the better. And
Right.
so that's there too. But I mean, I think in my case, it was during the pandemic, it was Netflix, so it's, pretty much commercial TV or
Right.
today's version of commercial TV. And so that's what they were going for. And honestly, they executed a lot of it really good. There's not one line in that entire film that comes out of the book that I've noticed, not one character says one thing that is in the book. Every single thing has changed. A lot of the ideas are the same, and the scene where he's in, like, he falls in the cistern and all that stuff. I mean, that's very, very similar to how it was in the and there were a lot of things that were very, very similar, but like there was no point in there where I go like, that's a line out of the, I mean, I haven't read the book in 15 years, but like I would remember, a piece of dialogue that would go like, oh yeah, that was out of that book.
Right. And have you seen the movie Sorcerer?
I was going to ask you about that because you were talking about Friedkin, and everybody says Sorcerer is this just incredible
Yeah.
thing, and it's on my, with Klaus Kinski, and it's on my like list of things to watch because I want to write something that's sort of limited in scope, but like really, really big and deep and broad. So like
How do you-
the idea of moving a boat, like I'm like, how do you make that work? But
So
everybody says it's magic, so I really want to see it.
the boat one is Fitzcarraldo, where
Oh,
they
okay, I got it wrong. So Sorcerer is about a
Sorcerer.
truck.
Yeah,
A
Sorcerer is
truck. Yep, that's right. Okay, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I'm conflating, but I do know, I'm aware of both of them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The like going through the second Josh Duffy book, I'm like, this is Sorcerer.
Mm, mm,
Like they're guys who are essentially, they have nowhere else to turn, right? They're
yeah,
on the
yeah.
run for something. They end up in the, like, Peruvian jungle, and they have to
Mm,
bring these two trucks full of nitroglycerin 219 miles, and it's their
yeah,
only chance at survival.
Right.
yeah,
Right. If they move too much, they're going to explode and die.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
It's very
what a perfect premise. It's like if that popped into my head while I was taking a shower, I would just run naked to my computer and I would just be there for days. Like I just love just the idea of something, just a contained premise like that you can just make into something like that's really cool. I need to see both those films.
I mean, it's also at a time where Sorcerer bombed because it came out opposite Star Wars, uh, and people just didn't want the dark shit anymore.
Right, right.
But if Sorcerer had, my theory is, if Sorcerer had made the money Star Wars did and Star Wars bombed, that Gray Man movie would have looked really different.
Oh wow. Wow. That is a butterfly effect.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, I mean that's a movie that, based on like location and just amount of just tenseness. There's a review on Letterbox that's just, this movie makes you say, "Oh Jesus Christ," every 30 seconds,
Oh wow.
and it does. But that whole thing, you got to watch Sorcerer. It's
Yeah, I definitely want to watch both those films, but I mean I definitely want to see Sorcerer.
it's well, you deal with a lot with the intelligence world.
Hmm.
Um, how have you researched it?
yeah.
We're curious in just general intelligence agency stuff and
Right.
things that you're doing right now. Um, so I would just want to talk a little bit about what your take on the intelligence world is, if these type of things exist, where there are like intense black op operations or assassins or people that are like, plausible deniability on assets, stuff like
Yeah.
And
where
is there that sorcerer moment where you read something or are aware of something that's actually happening and run naked to your computer for hours? Is there stuff like that where you see something and you're like, I have to translate this?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, so I talk to a lot of X this and X
Okay.
that. More than anything, I have definitely talked to some people who are actually on the job in different capacities. So, like nobody really tells me classified stuff. I mean, you can
Right.
infer stuff, and I've been in the conversations with people like most recently at the Pentagon where I asked a question, they're like, "Yeah, okay, we're not talking about that. Let's talk about anything else but that," and it's like, all right, so it's like what I've heard is true,
Right. Right.
and a lot of and I talk to a lot of military people, and they are sort of like, do you know the difference between Title 10 and Title 50 in the military? Okay, so a military operation, the simple way to explain it is, so let's say when the military went into Venezuela and got Maduro, that was a Title 10 operation. They were working in the capacity of the military. The Navy SEALs were working in the capacity of the military. But there's also something called Title 50, where that same military unit can be working in the capacity of intelligence officers. So they have whole different rules of engagement. They have
Right.
whole different sort of like, well, I guess lines they report to, but they still report up to their commanders, but their commanders report to other people. So really the short answer is like a lot of this stuff that I talk about in these books would probably be done by military unit working in the capacity under an intelligence service,
Right.
and that happens. There's also a group in the CIA called the Special Activities Center. They used to be called Special Activities Division, and that's who Court allegedly used to work for. And
Okay.
they are small units. All are former special forces, so they're all going to be former Delta Force predominantly, or SEAL Team 6, or like one of the super elite
Right.
Joint Special Operations Commands units. So, not uh, Green Beret Special Forces, not Army Rangers, not regular SEALs, but the SEAL Team 6, which is like the regular SEALs are very, very competent SWAT team guys, basically. If you think of them like that, SEAL Team 6 is our elite counterterrorism unit that does the super badass stuff. Delta Force is like our elite Green Berets, that very small unit that does really well. And it was a Delta Force in Venezuela. I think I just said the team SEAL teams, but it was Delta Force. And Special Activities Division pulls out of those units mostly and has these very, very small teams that do these jobs. Usually those guys are a little bit older. It's one of the problems. Like when I wrote Gray Man, I didn't have access to these people. I was just a guy working a day job, trying to write at Starbucks before work every morning. Um, and so I made Court as a member of the Special Activities Division. And it's like, now that I know a lot of uh, SAD, now they're called Special Activities Center. I know a lot of these guys, and they've all had like 4 or 5 surgeries, and they're veterans. They're a little bit older, so they're not really running gunners. Excuse me, like a Delta Force team, would
Right.
be. So, I mean, yeah, all kinds of stuff happens, and I think the stuff that happened in Venezuela was like kind of one of the best executed operations of our lifetime, as far as like they had the Navy involved, they had cyber involved, they had some kind of secret weapon involved, that was apparently, it was some sort of directed energy weapon. They had as few as 20 Delta Force guys actually in the compound that got Maduro, that's a pretty small unit.
Yeah.
Obviously for the purposes of our stories, it's one guy or two guys, because, if everything was like 20 guys plus the intelligence dudes and plus the cyber dudes or whatever, you couldn't really tell a story that way. But I
Right.
mean, cool things happen, but not really at that like one or two guy level that you put in these
Right.
books. And it's funny, there, I don't know if you've read anything by Brad Taylor. He's
Yeah.
one of my best friends, and he's former Delta Force dude. um but Brad, I've done signings with Brad, and he'll be like, "No, this stuff absolutely does not happen," and I'll be like, "Yeah, it probably happens." Now, Brad used to be in Delta, and but he's very, very specific, and he's going like, "Yeah, no, this would not be allowed," blah blah blah, and I'm always kind of like winking behind him, but
Right.
um, he's more right than I am for sure, but he's not but he's also careful in what he says.
Right.
Do you get any pushback from intelligence agencies on this or governmental agencies aside from just being like, hey, we're not going to talk about this?
Never, not even once. And it's so funny that I have met so many people who are CIA officers or NSA people or Delta Force people or SEAL Team 6 guys who really, really like the books. And obviously they know part of it's ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, but there it's weird. Like I would expect because like I go to, I see these guys in things that aren't like my book signings. So like I go to SHOT Show, which is a firearms trade show, and like all these guys are there, and people they'll be like, oh yeah, it's the dude that wrote The Gray Man or whatever. They'll be like, oh yeah, I really like your books. Now I know that they know that when I'm talking about what they do for a living, that I'm doing it for entertainment value. You know what I mean? And it's not
Right.
like super realistic, but they're incredibly cool about it and enjoy it and like it and tell me what they like or whatever. They'll kind of laugh along with me when I'll say stuff like, yeah, this guy did this thing by himself, and the reality is it would be probably 350 people and they'd screw it up. Um, but yeah, no, it's weird. I've always expected, I'm always like a little bit early in my career. I was the ghostwriter with a Delta Force guy on a couple of novels. And so like my name's nowhere on the books. His name is, and he used to be in Delta Force. And it was like so awkward to me because I'm like a nobody. I literally had to buy a book to see exactly what Delta Force was before I wrote a book like I was the Delta Force guy. Okay.
Right.
And
Right.
and so I'd get on the phone with this guy. He was awesome. I'd be like, yeah, I sent you some chapters. What'd you think? And he loved it. He was very cool about it. And the whole time I'm going like, it's like I waited tables till I was a bartender till I was like 30. It's like, when this guy was, doing all this cool stuff. And at the same time, though, I remember he's like, I do have one little critique for you. I was like, yeah. And I thought he's going to be like, well, we don't use the Berettas anymore. We use this gun or whatever. And he goes like, could you dial back a little bit of the cussing? I'd really appreciate if you do that. He's like, because I got 3 daughters and I know they're going to read this. And I was just like, oh my God. And and I'm just doing it for like, the humor value in a situation, a couple Delta guys like cussing each other out or whatever. But he's like coming back at me going like, man, you did a really good job. Could you have less bad words? And I'm like, and I feel like a dog that's just been beat. And I'm like, yes, sir. I'll take care of that.
You have a new Gray Man book coming out, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah. It's called The Hard Line, and it is my 15th in the series. And it's I'm really happy with it. It's like with every book, if you catch me like in July, I will tell you to your face this is the worst thing, or it's not ever going to come out.
Of course.
Just because I'm always pulling my hair out, and it's really not till like my second edit to where I go like, oh, I found the book. My wife loves it when I come in. I go like, I think I just found the book in this 160,000 page, 160,000 word thing that I've written, because for me, if a book is 99% done, that means you've got like 500 problems with it, and it just feels like this monster. And but I'm really happy with how this one turned out. It's got all the action of any other Gray Man book, but it also has a lot more nuance. It gets into Court's family, and it gets into Zach's family and past. And really, of all my books, this has got an antagonist, a villain, who I think readers will identify with more than anybody else. He's a Northern Irish assassin, and Court killed his son, and he's obsessed with going after Court. And so there's this big, huge conspiracy in the U.S. government, and somebody brings 5 foreign assassins into America to take out intelligence professionals. And one of the assassins is a guy that only wants to come to America to get intelligence about how to find Court. And so there's this, like, these 2 apex predators are after each other in the middle of this thing. And Court doesn't want anything to do with this guy. It's like I told my editor one time, it's like, one day I want to write a book about just one of the henchmen that Court pushes off the side of the mountain as he's on his way to do the cool thing. And that guy come, that quick little interaction comes back to haunt court. And
Yeah.
that's not specifically what happens, but this is basically a story about something that happened in another Gray Man book where one of the people who fell by the wayside as court was going after his very legitimate objective was the son of a legendary IRA assassin, and how that can kind of like come back and haunt court down the road. And so it's a book that's got a lot. I got to go to Northern Ireland to do research on it, and up to DC to do research. So it was a cool story to work on.
See, that's why I appreciate the series, because it appears that there's actually like thought put into why the things are happening.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of times in this genre, it just goes, "Hey, bad guy, good guy," and we're
Yeah.
gonna hit each other at some point, and along the way, people are gonna get shot.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
never I never want the bad guy to be he's bad because he's got the black hat on and the other guy's got the white hat on.
yeah, no, it's like inherently, like my college experience was creative writing, and I read a lot of stuff and wrote a lot of stuff, and I'm admittedly pretentious about the like books and movies and everything that I enjoy, right? Like I'm like I hate new movies. I only watch 1970s, or whatever kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
But like that story, and I feel like it's lost a lot. That story is interesting without the like cool action sequences in it.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know,
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
if the story can stand alone without any of the fluff, then it's a good story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And I like reading stuff like that. I like, the premise standing on its own, and the other stuff, it is, you want it to be unexpected. I mean, a Gray Man novel, you're going to expect action, and of course you're going to get it. I'm going to try and give you action in different ways and in different places than you've had it before, and try to not cover the same ground. I'm just obsessed with not doing the same thing again, because it's just going to feel derivative
Well,
to the reader and to me.
Well,
yeah, you have to be being as prolific as you are.
yeah, booking is a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Going to the Friedkin real quick. That car chase in The French Connection,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Where he chases a train. That entirely came about because he was like, people have done cars. Bullet just came out. We're not going to do it better.
You're right.
What
Yeah.
can he chase that is not a car? And they were like, there's trains.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's the elevated thing. I mean, it's very well shot in the film is just incredible. And the pacing of the film, it's like when you go back and watch 70s film, it's kind of jarring how things are paced. And I mean that in a good way, but like initially, and this, especially talking to somebody pretentious, this is gonna be like nails on a chalkboard. But when you first start watching it, you're like, what the hell's happening here? Because I don't want to say it's slow. I don't want to say it's slow, but compared to today, it's not frantic. But once you get into that pace, it's amazing.
Well, like Dirty Harry, this is my favorite example. Dirty Harry is a genre piece,
Mm-hmm.
And it's made like a best picture. There's no reason that they shot it as well as they did. There's no
Mhm.
reason that it's as tight as it is. But there's a scene in it, right, where Clint Eastwood goes up on this like crane to talk this guy off a building, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't really relate to the plot, and it's shot in real time, mostly in long shots, and there's no music. And nobody's doing that shit now.
Yeah, exactly.
7 minutes of a guy on a crane.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just shows us how our brains have been rewired over time to where, like, when I see it, and I'll say the same thing about books. Some of my favorite books when I was younger, on rereads, I go like, what is happening here? I mean, and it is sacrilege to say this. But I mean, if have you read The Charm School? Do you know that book, The Charm School by Nelson DeMille? Okay. It's a Nelson DeMille novel. One of my top 5 favorite novels of all time. It's takes place during the Soviet Union, and it's like a young American who's traveling in Russia, finds that there's a place called Miss Ivanova's Charm School, which is like captured Vietnam pilots that are being kidnapped in Russia so that they can teach Russian spies how to act like Americans. So that's the premise, and it's
That's a great premise.
It's an amazing premise,
Yeah.
And so. And there's tons of action and all this other stuff, but I hadn't reread it in forever. I just tell people Charm School is one of the best books you'll ever read. And as I was rereading it, the pacing is just so different from how things are done now. You're going, wait, they just found out about the charm school and now they're having dinner and he's trying to get this girl in bed. You
Well,
know, it's like, wait a second, there's prisoners and they could all die tomorrow. You know, it kind of gets in your head a little bit. I mean, the book is just as good, but you have to realize your brain's been rewired to,
do you
you've
have,
got 15 seconds.
yeah, do you have to think about that? Do you ever get annoyed? You're like, this is great, but I have to cater to the short attention span of people.
That's a good question. I fight against that. In fact, in my Gray Man novels, in this book, The Hard Line, um, you see the Gray Man through the as an adversary at the beginning. So at the beginning of this book, as far as you're concerned, because you're in the head of
Right.
this young henchman who is just trying to get a paycheck and didn't even know he's going to be working for gangsters until he got there, and it's all very like unfortunate. So the only way you see the Gray Man is this, scary thing that's coming closer and closer, but you don't really see Court for maybe 50, 60 pages till you're actually in his point of view. And that just every time I'd go back as I was writing this book, I was going like, I can't do that. I can't get away with that. People are, and then finally I was just like, this works. I mean,
Yeah.
it works. Some people might not like it. And I'm in the same thing with the new book. It's like, I'm not quite introducing Court as early as I feel like I should, but then I'm like, come on, man. It's like people that have stuck with you for 15 books are going to let you get away
Right.
with this and
Wanna
trust
trust
you.
them.
Yeah. And trust you. And if it doesn't work, you will learn a lesson.
Well, again, it's your creation.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
whatever you want with it. I
Yeah.
mean, like there's consequences to your actions, right? But like with my company, I can do whatever I want. I don't have to show
Yeah.
up. I have
Yeah.
to deal with whatever happens.
Exactly. Right.
That's the
Yeah.
thing. I can deal with what happens. I
But-
can do whatever.
But you can
Yeah.
do, and if you know inherently as like a storyteller that the device you're using works,
Right.
Yeah.
you got to do it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
And also, please don't kill Zoya because every other version of this, they kill the love interest.
I
and-
know they do. I know. It's like a Mitch Rapp blowing up the wife in the
Oh my
house.
God! Stop listening to it. I was like, okay. I was like, I know this is coming, but I just can't do
Yeah.
another.
I'm not even judging it. I'm just going like, no.
Yeah, it was bumming me out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Storytelling is just sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You get so invested in the characters, and of course, Vince Flynn would want you to hate it. He wouldn't want you to go like, okay, cool, we got rid of her. Now he can go back to being single or whatever. It's like you want there to be emotional stakes, and that was the tough thing when I wrote the Tom Clancy, Jack Ryan books, because I couldn't necessarily kill off Clancy people, or Clancy's creations.
Right,
So
right.
there was a guy, a great friend of mine, Grant Blackwood, who wrote a book with Clancy before I did and introduced several characters. And I just had to like call Grant up and I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. I'm just whittling away all of your creations. And it's really the only way that there can be stakes in this story, because these are, characters that are like good guys, and I'm like, I can't kill John Clark or Jack Ryan or, Mom. It's like, I'm going to have to kill the people you made. And he understood it. And then I did 7 Jack Ryan books. And I guarantee every person I've ever created is slaughtered by the next guy that came along. And that's just kind of the way that you keep the stakes in there. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I didn't realize. I don't know anything about ghostwriting, but
Yeah.
I'm very
Yeah.
excited to see this next book.
Yeah, man.
I consistently check to see when they're coming out, and then I go, fuck, it's still like 8 months away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something
Well, when
else.
it's still 8 months away, that means I had not anywhere near halfway finishing it. So
That's kind of terrifying.
it's always
I'm happy to get into your series. I'm really looking forward to reading these.
Yeah, it's also, aside from Sorcerer, you should, if you haven't seen you should see Friedkin's movie Cruising.
I knew you were gonna bring that up.
Yeah, you
Wait.
asked
who's in Cruising, because the title's
Al Pacino.
really.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's a strange movie. It's a very strange movie.
It's
Yeah.
it's basically Al Pacino's a cop who goes undercover in the gay S&M world in New York in 1980 to find the serial killer.
Oh wow.
And when it came out, everyone everywhere hated it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it was
against his type or what, like, wasn't what you expected.
A groups didn't want to be portrayed as serial killers.
Right.
The Puritan people hated it because it was about gay people.
because it was
Yeah. And Friedkin somehow got that made and just said, screw everybody, I'm going to do what I want to do. And
that's the other thing of like movies now versus then. Like if you watch this movie, you'll just be sitting there going, who the fuck greenlit this?
Right. It's a very good American giallo film.
But like it's all shot in actual clubs with real stuff going on.
Oh, wow.
It's insanity. But he's another guy who did whatever he felt like doing.
Yeah.
At his own detriment sometimes because the taste changed.
But it holds up time and
but by now everyone's like, oh, they're great.
But it was good. He stuck to his principles and made some good art.
But
yeah,
I'm very excited about this book and I appreciate you doing this with us.
Oh, my pleasure. This has been like the most fun podcast I've done. So this is terrific. Yeah.
I love hearing that.
This is where I go. That's not saying much. No, I mean, I enjoy every podcast, but no, this is fun to talk about this stuff. And I'm definitely going to check these films out. You need to. Have you seen a movie called The Man from Nowhere? I'm just going to throw a totally different thing. It's a Korean film.
No, I haven't.
Since you gave me these pearls, I'm begging you to watch The Man from Nowhere. Okay. If you like Gray Man stuff, it is sort of what I wanted the Gray Man to be, film wise. And fortunately for me, I wrote the Gray Man before this movie came out because it involves like an ex-assassin who's protecting a young girl. Right. But if you watch this film, and I really hope you do, give it 15 minutes because the first 15 minutes, it feels like it's going to be kind of funnier and more lighthearted than it is. But it is, it's got the action, it's got the heart and soul, and it's got the premise. It goes dark in ways where you're going like, oh my God, they can't possibly be doing that. It's a very good film. I hope you like it.
Man from Nowhere?
The Man from Nowhere came out in 2009.
Okay, yeah, I'll check that out.
Yeah, you'll love it.
Foreign countries can get away with more stuff recently.
Oh yeah.
American Hollywood productions can.
For sure.
But yeah, thank you again for doing this.
Hey, my pleasure, guys.
All right.